The story kicks off with our main character, who knows he's been transported to a whole new world. After 9 long years of hitting the books, he was finally about to graduate. But right at that moment, our young guy accidentally discovers that people can use powers. With a look of complete shock, he can barely believe what he just witnessed. Our MC and everyone around him start freaking out when they realize this is a cultivation world. A strange message pops up, saying there's been an error and he needs to start over. Hearing this, our guy collapses and starts bawling over his 9 years of wasted studies. But he stops for a second, and an idea sparks as he remembers all those transmigration stories. He figures his own hidden talent must be off the charts, so he heads to an evaluation ceremony. Everyone gathers in front of a giant monument where each person's potential is tested. But the MC's result is just awful, and he breaks down crying, wanting to go home because everything has gone completely sideways. While he was bemoaning his pointless life, a mysterious figure asks him something unexpected. The man asks if he wants to cultivate immortality, leaving him completely stunned. With that, he's taken to a beautiful place in the mountains known as the Qinyan Dao sect. The sect master, a man named Dois Taiwa, already has a task for the protagonist. The desperate sect master grabs him and begs for his help with an important matter. But the senior brother Su Changyu just sips his tea, not too concerned about the situation. The leader explains they need 8 disciples within a year, or their sect will be disbanded. Hearing this, Su Changyu says they just need one more person to solve the problem. However, the master says it's not that easy, as all the sects were fighting over new talent. The old-timer complains that other sects were even using honey traps to recruit new members. Some sects would use beautiful young women to convince guys to join them. Despite all that, he managed to recruit the young Yiping, who had 0 talent but would work for free. Our main character is thrilled and says he'll do anything if he can just learn to cultivate. The master then worries the kid will bolt once he finds out the truth, so he cooks up a plan. The idea is simple: pretend to be a grandmaster and teach him a bunch of nonsense. They can string the MC along for a year, and Changyu finds the whole idea pretty amusing. Soon after, the disciple asks his master if he knows the nickname he's gotten from others. Intimidating glare, he describes himself as a disciple with absolutely no talent. But then he unleashes an incredible power, showing that he's actually super strong. Su Changyu boasts that when it comes to putting on an act, he's the best in the entire region. He then strikes a dramatic pose, full of himself, while his master is left wondering about his massive ego. The old man says he just needs to keep the newbie from leaving for 1 year, and everything will be fine. But to the leader's surprise, the senior disciple flatly refuses the request with great conviction. He explains that fooling the kid for just 1 year is too small a goal for his talents. With his chest puffed out, he promises to make the protagonist want to be in the sect even in his next life. His master is impressed by his confidence and praises him for being such a great actor. Changyu gets so cocky that he swears he'll eat entire sword, dipping sauce and all, if he fails this mission. After their chat, he says his goodbyes and mentions he'll be waiting for the kid on the back mountain. Changyu refuses his master's help to get back and simply walks away with an air of superiority. He claims he's not the same disciple he used to be, who needed help getting around. The young man makes a very specific hand gesture that catches everyone's attention. The sect leader is shocked when he recognizes the technique, wondering if it's what he thinks it is. With a serious look, Changyu speaks of a prosperous era, just as his master always wished for. And right after that, he uses a powerful sword skill with just his fingers. The sect master is floored and yells that it really is the legendary sword, flying technique. He doesn't get how it's possible since Changyu hadn't learned a thing in 10 years. But senior brother Changyu just gives his master a smug gesture as if it were nothing. At this, the sect leader's face falls in disappointment as he realizes he's been duped again. The young man laughs and says he was just faking it and actually still needs a ride. Then, as night falls, everything is set for the meeting on the mountain peak. In a stunning setting, Su Changyu waits alone for the MC's arrival. Despite his cool pose, he's shivering from the cold, huddling in his clothes. He sneezes and complains about picking such a cold spot just for the atmosphere. Suddenly, he senses someone's presence and perks up because the MC has finally arrived. He immediately straightens up and gets into character to begin his grand performance. The protagonist arrives, exhausted, and marvels at how extraordinary immortals are. Yiping is completely awestruck by the imposing figure he sees before him. Bathed in the light of the full moon, the senior brother looks like a true cultivation master. With a serious and mysterious gaze, he stares down the MC to start his big show. The protagonist watches Su Changyu at the top of the cliff. Suddenly, the senior brother summons blue lightning around his sword, looking like a god. Completely shocked, Yiping wonders if what he's seeing is a true sword immortal. But then our MC starts to get a weird feeling about the whole situation. He asks himself why a sect that took in a nobody like him would have such an incredible disciple. At that moment, an idea pops into his head, leaving him totally blown away by the possibility. Our young man imagines that the sect is actually a secret group of super powerful masters. This gets him all excited, thinking that anyone there could make him incredibly strong. Then our guy starts to remember when he first joined the sect earlier that day. He recalls the whole place looking like it was falling apart. It was so old and abandoned. He didn't think much of it at the time, but now he thinks the rundown look was a bit over the top. However, even in ruins, the place was impeccably clean, which he found very intriguing. He then puts the pieces together and realizes it was all a disguise to hide their true power. He's amazed and declares that not even 3 million immortals could compare to his senior brother. Hearing this, Changju cracks a smile and says he likes the MC's style, taking him under his wing. Changju loves the compliment, and to return the favor, he decides to put on a little demonstration. He then says he's going to give our young man a great opportunity to improve his powers. He unleashes a powerful blast of energy toward the protagonist. Ye Ping is thrown backward by the force of the blow, completely astonished by the scene. Changju explains that the breeze is a secret art that greatly enhances one's cultivation talent. Our young man is in shock because no ordinary sect would have such a powerful technique. Ye Ping bows while the senior brother just hides the pain in his arm. But in his head, he's laughing because it was just a regular gust of wind and nothing more. Right after, he says that before teaching him the sword, he's going to ask our young man a question. The MC gets excited, as he's seen this in stories where the master tests the apprentice first. With a superior air, the phony master asks him what he thinks is the pinnacle of swordsmanship. Changju gloats internally, planning to say that any answer he gives will be wrong anyway. Ye Ping becomes thoughtful and takes the question about the pinnacle of the sword very seriously. Our young man thinks the question is incredible and perfectly suited for their current situation. He's sure he's in the presence of a master and ponders how to answer something so profound. He then thinks the answer can't be simple, so he decides to be very cautious. After a full hour, our MC is still thinking, making his senior brother pretty ticked off. Internally, Changju complains he's going to freeze to death waiting for the newbie in this spot. He finally answers that the pinnacle of the sword is a single blade of grass that can slice the sun and the moon. Hearing this, Changju is completely dumbfounded by the kid's incredibly over-the-top answer. The concept of a simple blade of grass becomes something extremely powerful in his mind. Our young man imagines a single blade of grass with the power to cut through the heavens and the stars. This leaves Changju floored, because not even he could have come up with a line that impressive. He went too far. Ye Ping asks if his answer was offensive in any way. But inwardly, the senior brother loves the line and decides he's going to use it himself in the future. So he acts like a master and says the MC is aiming a little too high for now. To help out, Changju draws his sword and says he's going to do something for our young man. Then, with a swift movement, he creates an energy mark on the ground in front of him. He says he left a sword mark there so the protagonist can study the technique. He explains that the mark contains the strongest sword intent and that he'll be back in 7 days. With that, our MC is overjoyed, now certain that he's joined a sect of masters. Changju runs off happy as can be, saying he needs to find the others to continue the show. Soon he finds a girl sitting on a rock in the middle of a bamboo forest. The young woman then asks him what he thought of the new junior brother's talent. She turns around, revealing her beautiful features as she waits for her senior brother's answer. But he scolds her for spying, and she claims she was just curious about the situation. At that moment, Changju gets the idea to test his new acting skills on his junior sister. He then changes the subject, and the girl is left confused about what's happening. With the air of a grandmaster, he asks her if she knows the pinnacle of swordsmanship. She's puzzled and asks why he's bringing that up all of a sudden. He then declares that the pinnacle of the sword is to use a blade of grass to slice the sun and the moon. The young woman is impressed by his words, and her eyes sparkle with admiration. She compliments his acting skills, and Changju strikes a proud pose. After the playful moment, he gets serious again, and says she now needs to answer his question. He wants to know how long she thinks it will take the newbie to understand the sword intent. He confesses that not even he understands this so-called sword intent, and his sister says she doesn't either. The girl gets a look of complete confusion and can't believe what she just heard. 2 hours later, our protagonist is still on the cliff, meditating. With great seriousness, he sits in front of the mark left on the ground to study it. But the MC thinks it just looks like a crack and starts to doubt his master. He then scolds himself for such silly thoughts, remembering all the proof that his brother is a master. Convinced, he decides he just hasn't tried hard enough and moves closer to the mark. With his eyes gleaming, he becomes super focused, believing he'll get it this time. So, our young man keeps trying to comprehend the secret behind that crack in the ground. Suddenly, a mysterious figure appears reflected in the protagonist's eye. In his mind, a powerful swordsman emerges, surrounded by an aura of blue energy. That figure holds a long sword that glows intensely with incredible power. And right after, the warrior begins to demonstrate his sword techniques for the MC. His movements are swift and full of power, leaving the protagonist deeply impressed. At that moment, he feels as if a great bell is ringing in his ears as he has an epiphany. He sees 12 sword movements that become clearer and clearer in his mind. Then in his vision, he himself begins to practice with a glowing sword. The MC repeats the movements over and over again to learn them. With each repetition, he gets faster and his strikes become more precise. He practices nonstop and his sword movements grow increasingly powerful. Our MC continues training in his mind at an impressive speed. With this, he learns more and more sword techniques, reaching 15 movements. Soon he has already mastered 20 different movements, and his power grows astronomically. All this knowledge floods his mind like a torrent of divine enlightenment. Back in reality, he opens his eyes, completely shocked by the light from the mark. Sitting on the cliff, he's confused, not understanding what just happened. But he soon realizes it was all the work of his incredible senior brother. The protagonist remembers the breeze, and believes it boosted his talent to an insane degree. He cries with joy and regrets ever doubting his brother. Even though he's exhausted, he tells himself this is just the beginning and continues to train. 7 days pass, and we see the senior brother's residence high up on the mountain. We find his treasure box, filled with props for his performances. He starts getting ready, grabbing an accessory to tie back his hair and look stylish. With his look complete, he's all set to go check on our young man's progress. Changyu looks up at the sky and comments that's a beautiful day for his plans. With that, he heads out excitedly, saying it's a great day for another one of his performances. We open on a mountainous landscape, where a guy is standing on a bridge, looking completely wiped out. The swordsman is totally exhausted and regrets choosing this place to train. He then wonders why everyone thinks being a swordsman is such a walk in the park, and man, does it tick him off. We flash back to 7 days ago when a young woman asks if he even understands the intent of the sword. The girl starts laughing at him, calling him pathetic for training for 10 years without understanding the basics. This gets him all riled up, and he gives her a light bunk on the head, telling her that swordsmanship isn't that simple. He explains that his technique is one of the top 10 in Qingzhou and was used by a famous Taoist. His sword art is divided into 4 parts representing the seasons spring, summer, fall, and winter. When asked, he says he's reached the proficiency of spring, and the girl doesn't seem impressed. A map shows he's barely started, and the young woman calculates it'll take him a solid 100 years to perfect it. The senior brother gets furious with the girl and yells that one day she'll see how strong he can be. She then questions just how talented someone would have to be to figure it all out on their own. The senior brother scoffs at the idea, saying the girl is just daydreaming about something impossible. He then explains that the sword's intent is what matters, and with it, a simple attack becomes lethal. But in 10 whole nations, only one expert managed to get close to this power, becoming a legend. The girl still insists, asking what if someone actually managed to reach that level of power. He then says that's impossible, because not even the greatest genius in 500 years could pull it off. The swordsman reinforces that understanding the sword's intent would be impossible, and we return to the present. He finally reaches his destination and wonders if his junior brother is awake yet. Looking to the side, the man finds the protagonist on the ground, looking completely wrecked. The protagonist looks like he's been training non-stop, with massive dark circles under his eyes from exhaustion. Seeing the kid's condition, his master is completely shocked, with no idea what happened. The older man then realizes the kid took a story he made up to motivate him way too seriously. At that moment, the man feels a pang of guilt, thinking he's starting to look like the bad guy in this story. He then decides that, for the good of the sect, he'll just roll with it and make it up to the kid later. Our hero then notices his senior brother's presence and greets him with a smile. The man asks how the kid's training is going and tells him to strike a pose quick. The disciple says he finally got it and thanks him for the opportunity, while the other guy can't believe it. Totally shocked, the senior asks the protagonist to repeat what he just said. Our hero confirms it, saying that including that morning, he has managed to master 400 techniques. Faced with this statement, the older man remains silent with a look of pure disbelief. Suddenly, he just bursts out laughing and asks if the kid is pulling his leg, since he just drew a simple mark for him. Our hero is confused by the reaction and asks why he's getting that cold laugh. The disciple then thinks that, for a true master, 400 techniques must be no big deal. He believes that with the chance he was given and a little talent, he should have learned 1,000 techniques in a single day. With that in mind, the young man starts to cry, lamenting how weak he is for not learning more. The master tries to console the kid, telling him he doesn't need to lie, as it's normal to fail with this technique. But the kid insists he's not lying, and the senior gets annoyed, telling him to stop showing off. Our hero feels sad, thinking his superior considers him unworthy of learning 400 techniques. So, the young man says that even with little talent, he can learn, because 400 isn't a large number. The swordsman gets furious hearing this, thinking the kid is seriously underestimating the path of the sword. He remembers his own suffering to improve and how common people are mocked for their slow progress. So the man decides to teach the kid a lesson and challenges him to show off the techniques he's learned. Our hero readily accepts the challenge, and the master thinks the stubborn kid is finally going to get a taste of reality. We see the two of them on top of a mountain with a vast blue sky above them. The protagonist then draws his sword, which begins to glow with a powerful golden energy. In the blink of an eye, he lunges forward with impressive speed, leaving a trail of light. His sword techniques are as fast as lightning and flow as smoothly as water. Our hero is completely focused on the fight with a sharp and determined look in his eyes. In an instant, our hero had already executed 36 sword movements all at once. The older swordsman just watches the attacks coming his way without moving an inch. He remains still and calm as the dust and energy from the blows dissipate around him. But inside, the master is completely shocked and speechless at what he just witnessed. The protagonist continues his assault with increasingly fast and fierce movements against his master. Even after the 36th strike, he showed no signs of stopping. The master remained still, observing his disciple's absurd speed without moving a muscle. Then a huge explosion of golden energy erupts at the sight of the fight, making everything around it glow. Without stopping for a second, the kid continues his movements, reaching the 108th strike. A massive thunderclap explodes in the sky, completely changing the weather around them. With this, the older man is totally paralyzed and starts to break out in a cold sweat. Countless bolts of lightning gather in the sky to form a thunder dragon, something he had only dreamed of seeing. The energy dragon roars in the heavens, and the man can't believe his eyes. Paralyzed, the master is left breathless as he realizes that this is the legendary dragon's roar. He recognizes the manifestation of the Four Thunder Swords technique at its maximum level. He then shouts that it's impossible, because his dream was to master this technique, and the kid did it in 7 days. But the shock was far from over, as a new green energy dragon appears in the sky. In 5 seconds, a new dragon's roar echoes, and the Summer Thunder Sword is completed. Before it could disappear, the Autumn Thunder Dragon emerges right after, almost at the same time. 2 energy dragons roar together in the heavens while the master is floored by the unprecedented scene. At this moment, the protagonist's movements don't slow down. Instead, they get even faster. Our hero continues to move faster and faster, looking like a golden blur across the mountain. In the end, his speed is so great that he becomes a true phantom of blue energy. Then, the strongest strike of the technique, the Winter Thunder Sword, finally reaches perfection. Completion of this sword felt completely different from the other 3, leaving the air heavy. The senior starts to break out in a cold sweat and is left speechless by his disciple's power. To the master, it was as if winter had arrived and all life was fading away. Only on move number 432 does the protagonist finally stop. The demonstration of his 7 days of study had officially ended, and his master is dumbfounded. The young man then stops in front of his superior, awaiting a response on his performance. He maintains a serious and focused gaze even after executing so many movements at once. But our hero doesn't move and says that something is wrong, because he relied too much on the sword. Our hero has a revelation and realizes he was limited by the weapon itself the whole time. He finally understands what his senior brother really meant to teach him with that lesson. The master is just standing there with a complete what the heck look on his face, having no clue what the kid just said. The young man says that a common sword only cuts, but the sword of the heavens uses everything as its blade. With that, our hero creates a sword of pure light with his hands, and his eyes begin to glow. Then he launches the attack, which creates a huge explosion of light, destroying everything in its path. The older man is shocked and wonders if he's dreaming, because our hero had another epiphany out of nowhere. He thinks that if the Winter Sword was the personification of demise and destruction, then the aura of this moment was the complete opposite, full of rebirth and new life. Full of vitality flows endlessly, creating a giant tree of life. Our hero stares at the energy sword he created, and in that moment, it seemed like the whole world. With a single casual move, that blade could cut down an army of 10,000 soldiers. The master is completely floored by the scene and can't believe what he's seeing. Then he panics and screams in shock as he realizes that this was the legendary sword intent. While the senior was freaking out, the young man simply dispels all that golden energy with a command. But our hero is disappointed and says he can no longer feel that sense of power. He laments having such great power but says his talent is horrible because it didn't last long. Hearing the words horrible talent, the older swordsman just freezes, completely stunned. He then remembers that when he was a child he saw a sword sovereign and chose this path. He thinks that the young man awakened the infinite sword intent, which makes him the greatest genius in the country. The protagonist then apologizes to his superior, saying he knows his movements are pretty average. In his mind, the master is freaking out, thinking he's nothing compared to the kid, but needs to keep up the act. With great effort to maintain his composure, he agrees that the disciple's movements were pretty ordinary. He wonders that if the kid is ordinary, then what does that make him? Even with a whirlwind of thoughts in his head, the senior maintains a serious and calm expression. Suddenly, the master notices something shining on a rock and asks what it is. Our hero hands him a notebook, saying it's notes from his training, and the senior asks to see it. With a serious expression, the swordsman begins to flip through his disciple's notebook. Inside the book were written profound principles about the sword movements he had learned. Reading the words was like looking at a starry sky for the very first time. He recognized each word, but together they formed a concept as vast as the galaxy. Shocked, he asks if the kid wrote this, and the young man says it was just an arrogant guess. But inside, the master is losing his mind because he doesn't understand a thing and wonders how our hero grasped it all out of nowhere. He thinks about how he trained for a decade and only scratched the surface of a technique the kid mastered in 7 days. To make matters worse, the young man also achieved the infinite sword intent, which makes him feel like complete garbage. Trying to pull himself together, the senior tells the disciple to keep training and that he'll be back in a few days. Seeing his superior's expression, our hero thinks he found him untalented and is going to kick him out. Desperate, the protagonist grabs his master and begs not to be abandoned, as he was finally accepted somewhere. He remembers that for half a year, no one would take him because he didn't have a spiritual root. The protagonist then thinks it's impossible he learned all that just by looking at the sky. With that, our hero becomes determined not to lose this chance, believing that everyone in the sect is a master. Meanwhile, at the sect master's residence, the place seems pretty peaceful and secluded. There, the sect leader is relaxing, sipping tea and admiring the flowers in his garden. But suddenly, someone comes running and screaming in desperation that something terrible has happened. The newcomer is our hero's master, and the sect leader asks why he's so worked up. The swordsman then says that his superior's dream might come true, because the sect is about to produce a dragon. Hearing the word dragon, the sect leader is completely shocked, his eyes wide open. The sect master is confused and questions his subordinate about what he meant by dragon. He explains that the new disciple, who started from scratch, has already mastered the entire sword technique in 7 days. The elder says this is no joke, but his disciple points to the phenomenon in the sky as proof. The sect master then admits to himself that he thought it was just some expert passing by. But he realizes that the one responsible for all of it was actually the young newcomer. With this revelation, the sect leader starts to cry and shouts that they finally have a genius. At this, the swordsman tries to calm down his superior, who is completely losing it. Then the elder splashes water on his own head to calm down, remembering an old prophecy. His subordinate asks if they won't be holding our hero back, but the leader says other sects already rejected him. He continues saying that cultivation is about destiny and that large sects are very dangerous. The master says he'll tell him the truth when the sect grows, and the young man can choose his own path. Convinced, the swordsman says he understands everything and will follow his superior's decision. The next day, the sect leader is chilling, enjoying his afternoon off. But suddenly, his moment of peace is interrupted by a disciple with bad news. The swordsman appears again and desperately yells that something huge has happened. The sect leader makes a very strange face. Thinking it's debt collectors, he tries to run away, saying the sect is now in his disciple's hands. The master stops running and gets confused, wondering if it's something else then. He then gets angry and smacks his subordinate for panicking and nearly giving him a heart attack. After the confusion, the scene changes to a beautiful view of the sect on top of a mountain. Now calmer, the superior asks what the problem is, and the swordsman hands him a paper to read. The document states that the administration office will investigate all unranked sects. To prove their legitimacy, they need to hand over 10 spirit stones in 2 months or they'll be shut down. Completely furious, the sect leader throws the table and yells that he'll appeal to the emperor. It's explained that a single spirit stone costs 10 taels of gold, meaning they basically have to starve for a year to afford them all. The swordsman tries to calm his master down and asks how many spirit stones the sect currently has. Great shame, the elder holds up his hands, showing the number 7. His disciple thinks he means 70 stones, but the leader says that's impossible. Then the young man wonders if he means 70 gold coins, but his superior denies it again. Desperate, he asks if it's silver coins, but the master, now on the floor, reveals it's 70 copper coins. Upon hearing the answer, his disciple completely freaks out and screams in pure despair. He can't believe they're that broke, but his superior confirms it's true. The leader then starts to explain that the sect originally had some savings, but he heard about a new cultivation fund and thought silver was a waste. According to the old man, it was a high-yield monthly return investment, a classic get-rich-quick scheme that everyone was jumping on. Except he didn't realize the scammers were after his money and ran off with everything. Crying, the sect leader admits he was tricked and asks his subordinate for a hug. Completely devastated, the senior brother thinks they're finished, and maybe they should just go their separate ways. The sect was completely done for this time. But the master pulls himself together and says he can't let the sect fail, because now they have a genius. Suddenly, a giant blue bolt of lightning cuts through the sky very close to where they were. The sect leader is shocked and looks toward the direction of that immense power. The swordsman then recognizes that it came from his new junior brother's residence. The young man wonders what that was in the sky, if the newbie has advanced again. But the sect master says that's impossible, because not even geniuses cultivate that fast. Then the leader says he's going down the mountain to get some stones and asks his disciple to look after our hero. 7 days later, the protagonist is still training on the cliff. There, the protagonist is seen training intensely with his new sword. He demonstrates incredible skill, executing several perfect movements. From a distance, his senior brother watches the protagonist training. He's shocked by the kid's progress and admits the phenomenon was real. The swordsman then thinks that the pressure of seeing that kind of talent is just too much. At that moment, our hero notices his senior and greets him with great respect. The young man says he has learned all 1,460 movements. The senior brother gets all emotional and starts to cry. Trying to compose himself, he explains that mastering the movements is just the beginning. He thinks he needs to exaggerate his words, or his cover will be blown. With a curious look, our hero then asks which realm his senior is in. The swordsman then strikes an imposing pose to answer the question. He makes up that he's at the first level of the supreme path of the sword. With sparkling eyes, our hero is impressed and calls him a hidden master. The senior continues the lie, saying that this level already makes him number 1 in 10 nations. The newbie is then shocked as he realizes his senior is the strongest of them all. Our hero yells that he must have become a dragon, and that he never imagined this in his life. He promises to train to catch up to his brother, and the senior feels bad about his kindness. The protagonist thinks it all feels like a dream, because just a few days ago, he was an ordinary man. The protagonist stares at the beautiful sunset. Meanwhile, his senior watches him with a very thoughtful look on his face. He asks if the kid used to be a scholar, and the newbie says he liked to read and paint. With a smile, the senior asks for help with a painting, thinking about the future. He imagines he'll be able to brag about having a painting from the future greatest swordsman of all time. The protagonist agrees awkwardly, asking his senior not to mind if it turns out bad. In his past life, our hero joined a painting society to win over a girl. He trained for 3 years and learned to paint, but in the end, the girl ran off with a rich guy. Completely devastated, he cries on the floor because painting didn't save his love life. An hour later, back in the present, our hero hands the painting to his senior. With a smile, the senior thinks the kid looks quite handsome when he's serious. The protagonist is then seen completely focused as he dedicates himself to his art. He then hands over the scroll and asks his senior not to mind if it didn't turn out well. His senior brother tells him not to worry and starts to unroll the painting to see. But upon seeing the painting, his eyes go wide with pure shock at what's drawn. On the scroll, a breathtaking painting is revealed, showing the senior brother himself. He's in shock at the artwork, which depicts the glow of dusk covering the entire sky. The Kinjian mountain range looks like a true paradise with flowers and trees. At that moment, he notices the painting's realism is impressive in its details. But what stands out most in the drawing is the figure of himself at the center of the work. With just a side profile, the painting captures the powerful aura of a sword immortal. The drawing is so vivid it looks like the character is about to jump out of the frame. Heaps praise on the painting, saying its only flaw is that it can't possibly capture his full, radiant beauty. With that, our hero thanks him for the compliment and says it's a gift for his guidance. But looking at the work again, the swordsman notices something he hadn't seen before. He spots a small red signature in the bottom corner of the scroll. The signature reads, Kinglian Hermit, and he teases the kid for giving himself a cool nickname. Suddenly, a powerful voice calls out for Changju, the protagonist's senior brother. The swordsman recognizes the voice and says it's a transmission from the sect master. He then grabs the painting and wonders what his leader's solution could be. At the Teiyu Sword sect, one of the 3 great sects of Qingzhou, someone launches a powerful attack. A powerful purple energy in the shape of a dragon manifests in the sky. We then see the sword comprehension cliff, where a mark glows intensely. A man is shocked by the power of the sword mark from the 4 Seasons ancestor. But a woman beside him says it's obvious, as only geniuses would come to a place like this. Suddenly, the mark on the rock releases a wave of powerful energy over everyone. In that instant, a blonde young man shouts with joy because he finally understood the technique. He then pulls the energy from the cliff and concentrates it in his hand with a smile on his face. One of the cultivators is shocked to see that Su Heng has reached the great completion of the sword. The young woman comments that he's a genius for doing in 1 year what takes others 3. From a distance, the sect elders observe the disciples' progress. One of the masters congratulates his colleague on having such a talented disciple in the sect. Su Heng's master smiles with pride but feigns modesty about the young man's achievement. Then another red-haired elder says it's too early to celebrate. He continues, saying his own disciples haven't advanced yet because they're holding back. Haired elder gets furious at the provocation and yells. But a third master intervenes, telling them not to fight because the leader has given an order. The other 2 then look on curiously, wanting to know the sect leader's plan. The man explains that the top 10 from the conference will receive a special prize. Hearing that, the 2 elders are completely shocked by the revelation. The prize is a token to enter the Taixuan Sword Tower and face its challenges. With a wick smile, Zhong's master says his disciple will definitely get a spot. But his colleague warns him not to celebrate too early, as the shame would be great if he lost. The other laughs and bets that if someone from outside the 3 sects wins, he'll clean the latrines. The scene then returns to the Qingyan sect, at the sect master's residence. Inside, the sect leader is seen talking with our hero's senior brother. With a confused look, the swordsman then asks what the solution to make money is. The master then reveals the solution to the sect's financial problems, a pile of junk. Outraged, our hero's brother asks if they're really going to make money with that garbage. With a smile, the leader explains that these are the sect's finest treasures, and they're going to sell them. The swordsman refuses to go through with this embarrassment, but his master grabs him and begs for help. Suddenly, the elder spots the scroll and snatches it from his disciple's hands. The leader says the sect is going bankrupt and that they'll sell the painting too, to help out. With that, the 2 arrive in the city and go straight to the Laikai pawn shop. Inside, an enthusiastic employee greets them and invites them into the establishment. The attendant asks if they're there to buy or sell, and the master says he has luxury items. Excited, the young man asks to take a look at the treasures they brought. But upon opening the bag, the employee's smile vanishes and he sees just a pile of trash. The appraiser's expression changes completely, and he gets a look of disgust. Flipping through one of the books, he finds a picture of a woman in very skimpy clothes. The shop guy turns bright red with embarrassment at the book's content. Desperate, the master yells that that's the wrong item and it can't be sold. Our hero's brother asks to borrow the book, and his master agrees without a problem. Then the attendant offers 10 taels of gold for all the junk, which shocks the master. The sect leader gets angry and tries to negotiate, but the employee doesn't care about the item's quality. The elder then tries to go down to 8 taels, but the young man's response is a flat no. Desperate, the elder offers 5 taels and says that's his final price. Deeply embarrassed, our hero's brother can't take it anymore and asks them to just leave. At that moment, the attendant notices the scroll and asks to take a look at the painting. Upon seeing the paper, the employee recognizes it and questions why they're pretending to be poor. The sect leader is shocked and then asks if that paper is really expensive. The appraiser confirms it, saying that the paper alone is worth more than 10 taels of gold. Analyzing the scroll more closely, he notices a red signature that shines brightly. Upon reading the name on the signature, the young man's expression changes to pure terror and astonishment. He then calls one of his assistants to talk privately about the item. The sect master is left completely clueless by the employee's sudden reaction. Meanwhile, the leader watches the two whispering in the corner. The colleague then asks if he's sure, and the appraiser confirms there's no mistake. With a completely different attitude, the young man smiles and asks them to wait a moment. The master and his disciple are confused by the change, but agree to wait. After an hour, the employee returns and says his boss has confirmed the artwork's value. The swordsman tries to tell the truth, but his master stops him from ruining the deal. Seeing his chance, the leader shows 5 fingers and says that's his final offer. He then laughs to himself, realizing they've completely misunderstood the painting. The appraiser looks thoughtful for a moment while analyzing the elder's proposal. His apprentice calls him greedy, but the elder says it's all part of the strategy. To everyone's surprise, the employee accepts the offer of 5,000 taels of gold. The leader was about to celebrate his strategy, but he and his disciple are floored by the amount. With wide eyes, the elder can't believe what he heard and asks the young man to repeat it. The appraiser then calmly confirms that the offer was for 5,000 taels. The two then get suspicious and ask if the guy is messing with them. He then assures them that their shop is serious and never jokes about business. The swordsman is shocked and wonders how a casual drawing by his brother could be worth so much money. He then whispers to the master to accept the offer before they change their minds, as the sect would be saved. But with a serious expression, the master says there's been a misunderstanding and the real value is 50,000 taels. Completely shocked, the swordsman yells at the elder and asks if he's lost his mind. The shop employee is stunned and asks if the master really wants 50,000 taels. The elder confirms it, saying he won't accept a single coin less. Distressed, our hero's brother mentally begs his master to have some sense for once. He wonders what kind of crazy painting would be worth that much money. To the surprise of both, the appraiser starts to laugh and praises their confidence. He says the shop owner was right and that they are no amateurs. The young man then suggests they talk openly about the price. He explains that for a work by the Shinglian hermit, the value isn't impossible to pay. The sect leader and his disciple are completely floored by what they just heard. They can't believe that absurd amount is a real thing. At that moment, the elder is freaking out internally because he just blurted out a random number. The master despairs, wondering how a drawing could be worth so much. He takes a deep breath and tries to stay calm to not blow the deal. His new strategy is to keep the conversation going to get more information. With a completely different posture, the master acts like he knows everything. He then reveals that other shops have also recognized the artist. The attendant continues the explanation, saying the name Shinglian Hermit is no longer a secret. He has already become very famous among art experts. Even though he appeared only recently, he's already being called the greatest scholar in the nation. His calligraphy is considered a perfect and unique work of art. The employee also says his painting skills are even more incredible. The passion in every stroke impresses everyone who sees his works. The young man tells them that all over the country, many women have fallen in love with his poetry. They are enchanted, admiring his scrolls and paintings. Many spend sleepless nights just imagining what the artist's face would look like. They dream of the genius man behind so much talent and mystery. Even the proudest scholars have surrendered to his genius. They all try to imitate and analyze his works to learn from the master. The hermit's unique style ended up causing a cultural revolution in art. It's a shame he vanished without a trace before the world got to know him. The employee continues, saying the world never had the good fortune of seeing his face. The only shame is that he disappeared before his works were discovered. He explains that scholars value reputation, but the artist treated it like dirt. This attitude makes him feel ashamed and, at the same time, full of admiration. The master and his disciple are sweating bullets, not believing what they're hearing. The elder then realizes they're talking about the protagonist, his apprentice. The young man confirms that the story is exactly as he's heard elsewhere, but he warns that because it's a portrait, the painting has a major flaw. Our hero's brother feels awkward. As he thought his own beauty added value to the painting, he feels like a complete idiot for thinking that and is embarrassed. With a dark aura, the master gets his disciple's attention. The elder reminds him that the price of the artwork will now be much lower than expected. Angrily, the appraiser laments that tens of thousands of taels have gone down the drain. He's furious that a simple portrait devalued the masterpiece so much. The elder's eyes glow red, and he says he wants to eat someone alive. His apprentice tells him to calm down so they don't blow their cover. The master pulls himself together and tells the guy to stop beating around the bush and give them a price. The shop then offers 10,000 taels, since the painting isn't a landscape. Without a second thought, the sect leader accepts the offer on the spot. He says the young man seems trustworthy and asks him to bring the money quickly. After finally closing the deal, the two leave the shop and head back into the city. The sun shines brightly as they walk through the bustling streets. The apprentice then asks why his master didn't try another shop. The elder replies that it was enough and they should stop there. With a serious look, the sect leader reveals his strategy to the young man. If the news got out, they would be in great danger because of the artwork. Our hero's brother is impressed by his master's calmness and wisdom. The elder then brags, saying that's why he's the sect leader. With a satisfied smile, the pair finally look at the payment they received. They got the money needed to save the sect from bankruptcy. Celebrating, the master holds up the gold and shouts that they're rich and the sect is saved. His disciple is also happy, as he's never seen so much money in his life. But the joy is short-lived, and the elder scolds his apprentice for asking for a portrait of himself. The master then begins to wonder about the protagonist's true origin. He asks himself how many secrets the young artist is still hiding from them. Our hero's brother reflects that the kid might have his reasons or not even know about his talent, but he's confused about how the young man got such expensive rice paper. With wisdom, the elder says they won't investigate because everyone has their secrets. He believes that when the time comes, the kid himself will tell them everything. The apprentice is surprised by the elder's seriousness and asks where they're going. He thought the master would try to get more paintings out of his younger brother. With a cunning smile, the sect leader says he's going to give his disciple a great gift. He wants to reward the young man for helping save the sect from bankruptcy. Then the two arrive in front of a giant and imposing-looking pavilion. The place seems very important and is surrounded by a mysterious aura. Shocked, the swordsman realizes his master's plan and is speechless. He then asks if the elder really intends to enter the pavilion of origin. The apprentice questions if his master isn't going a bit overboard, as this is the most expensive shop in the entire city of Bago. But the elder tells him not to be afraid, because the money was earned by the younger brother and assures him he knows what he's doing in important moments. The elder believes the sect's future depends entirely on the protagonist, and that their success is in the hands of that young genius. The swordsman insists the place is absurdly expensive, so his master shows him the banknotes with a confident smile on his face. Then the elder orders his apprentice to stop talking and act like a rich man, saying that confidence is the key to appearing powerful. Upon entering, they are greeted by two very beautiful women who invite them into the mysterious origin pavilion. With this, the master is completely flushed and amazed by the place, thinking this is how the rich live, comparing it to the pawn shop. An attendant asks if they want magic tools or manuals, and the sect leader says he wants the best and asks for the price. The woman says that first-class manuals cost 100,000 taels, but luckily there's a 30% discount because it's the shop's anniversary. Our hero's brother is completely shocked by the absurd amount. He can't believe the price and goes into a full-blown panic. The other employee confirms the price with a smile and says that after the event, they won't find a deal as good as this one. Devastated, the young man feels like a complete pauper and realizes the world of the rich is something he can't even properly imagine. The master tells his apprentice to stop panicking and have some courage, but the young man whispers that their money won't even cover one set. Our hero's brother asks the woman the price of just an introductory volume, and this question leaves the sect leader very confused. The attendant is surprised and asks if he's sure, warning him that buying only the introductory volume is completely useless. The swordsman tells her not to worry about its usefulness, and the woman warns that the shop doesn't accept returns, so he asks for the price again. Whispering, the master thinks it's crazy to spend so much money, but his apprentice reminds him of our hero's incredible learning ability. At this, the sect leader recalls that the kid understood an entire technique from a single sword mark and realizes the young man can do it. The confident smile, the elder agrees that for that monster, the initial volume is more than enough and that they'll make a huge profit. Shortly after, the attendant returns with 3 manuals that can be sold separately, and the elder asks which one is the most powerful. She then recommends the river flow sword technique and says a genius might even learn the next level from it. But the woman reveals that this is the most expensive one and costs 9,000 taels of gold, which makes the apprentice's soul nearly leave his body in shock. Even so, the master decides to bet everything on his disciple's genius and with a war cry, tells her to wrap up the expensive manual. He also orders the rest of the money to be spent on pills, and the young man asks if he's not going to save any, but the elder says no. Our hero's brother is completely paralyzed and stares at his master, surprised by the decision to spend all the sect's money at once. With a broken heart, the elder cries while hugging his money, reluctant to pay. Leaving the place, the master continues to cry the whole way, and the young man asks him to stop the drama, because he's getting embarrassed. Suddenly, the elder has an idea and asks if the other two brothers will also be taking the alchemist and array master exams. The young man confirms and asks if they're going back, but the sect leader yells, "No way," and forbids any talk of money for 2 months. Then the elder says he's taking his disciple to a secret place, and they arrive at a stall that sells manuals by the pound. The stall vendor asks if they want to weigh some manuals. The apprentice can't believe it and asks if this is really the secret place with treasures his master mentioned. The elder assures him there are treasures there and reveals it's where he found the young man's sword technique, leaving him completely shocked. The sect leader starts haggling and calls the price a rip-off, so the vendor makes a counteroffer of at most 5 caddies. At this, the swordsman squats down to look for something good in the piles of books while his master continues negotiating in the background. With a very serious and focused look, the young man begins to search through the piles of manuals for any useful technique. But he only finds books with bizarre and utterly useless covers and titles, like fighting manuals or suspicious romance novels. The young man gets furious and realizes it's all garbage, and that none of those techniques can actually be cultivated. The master returns very satisfied, hugging the shopping bag. Then the young man asks if his master isn't going to buy anything for himself, but the elder replies by asking what he would buy. With a smile, the elder says he's just an old man, and that his happiness is seeing his disciples and the sect doing well. The young man thinks his master's attitude is a bit cheesy, and the elder gets furious and threatens to punish him if he doesn't learn the technique in 7 days. The sect leader explains that he needs to learn the basics to be able to pretend he's teaching our hero, while they fool the kid with the fake manuals. The swordsman gets worried and wonders if our hero, with his absurd comprehension, wouldn't be able to learn something even from those fake manuals. The elder bursts out laughing and says the young man has been traumatized by the protagonist's talent, revealing that his technique didn't come from the stall. He explains that the stall's books are based on real techniques, but are ultimately just stories with no practical value. Showing some children's books, he says that would never look like a cultivation technique and would only fool a newbie like our hero. The young man asks why he said he'd give the books to the others, and the master reveals it was a joke, and he'll use them for decoration. The elder laughs hard at the idea of someone learning from that junk and swears he'd eat the books if it happened. The swordsman then suggests tricking the protagonist into making another painting to solve the other brother's problem. The leader sighs, as he's already thought of that, but feels bad about treating our hero like a money tree, even though the sect needs to grow. That's why the elder hates moral dilemmas. He gets very irritated and decides he'll think about it later. So he changes the subject and orders his apprentice to teach our hero for 2 months for a sword conference, which shocks the young man. The apprentice is completely shocked by the news of the conference and asks if his master is serious. He panics and warns that the protagonist has no internal power, and that this is a real fight to the end. The young man remembers he participated before, even with luck barely made it into the top 500, thinking our hero will get crushed. The master says he'll explain later and tells him to lie to the others, saying they only recovered the money they lost. We return to the back mountain where our hero is practicing swordsmanship. We see the protagonist training intensely with his sword, creating several beams of golden light in the air. The senior brother cries with envy, because our hero has already learned the sword's momentum in a very short time. At this, our hero notices his senior brother's presence and greets him, asking what he's doing there. The swordsman then approaches and asks if sword training has been getting a bit boring lately. With a smile, the protagonist says no, because he improves every day, so he never gets bored. This answer leaves the senior brother completely speechless, and he wonders if that's even a human response. The young man then says that if he is bored, he can give him a new manual to try and comprehend. Our hero's expression changes instantly, and with a desperate cry, he says he is very, very bored. He thinks that if a sword mark let him learn an entire art, a cultivation manual will make him ascend to the heavens. So the brother hands the manual to our hero and reveals that it is the ancient art of the demon god. The manual shows an image of a giant demonic creature about to devour a muscular warrior. Our hero is impressed and thinks that a name like Court of the Demon God can only belong to an unparalleled technique. With a crazy smile, he's certain his sect is a secret and super powerful immortal organization. The senior brother then makes up a story that he found the manual in ancient ruins and that its origin is a mystery. He says that since our hero has a poor spiritual root, focusing on the body is the best option to get stronger. But inside, the swordsman is panicking over his own lie. He quickly says goodbye and leaves, thinking about escaping before his brother finds out the manual is trash. The young man is proud of his perfect plan and can't wait to pretend to be a great master again. As night falls, we see the protagonist's silhouette on the peak, practicing with his sword. He continues his intense training and remembers the new technique he got, the ancient art of the demon god. The kid thinks the name is awesome and much cooler than his previous technique, and he's eager to start. But our hero knows that to learn something new, he needs total focus and can't divide his attention. So he decides to control himself and strengthen his current technique before starting the new one. The scene then takes us to the residence of Changyu, the protagonist's senior brother, high on a mountain. There, the swordsman sits in a lotus position and prepares to finally study the real technique he bought. With total concentration, the swordsman begins to study the new sword technique they acquired in the city. But soon he falls into complete despair, as he can't understand a single thing from the super expensive manual. Inside his mind, our protagonist visualizes a flurry of different sword moves. His strikes are incredibly fast and precise as he continues to train nonstop. After half a day of effort, our young man finally masters the thunder sword technique. Completely wiped out, our boy takes a deep breath after the intense training session. He then thinks that now all that's left is to master the hardest part of the technique. Even though his superior didn't say anything, he understands that he can't rush things. Our MC figures the manual was given to him at the perfect time to keep him from getting ahead of himself. With a smile, he believes his senior brother is a true strategic genius. After that, our young man starts reading the manual he was given. The book reveals itself to be the ancient demon, God Body Refinement Art. It speaks of a venerable being who achieved oneness with the universe. He discovers that this is a method of body cultivation, different from spiritual cultivation. This technique promises the power to shatter all of creation with just a single punch. The ultimate goal is to emulate gods and demons to create a divine body. Completely floored, our protagonist is amazed by how incredible this technique is. He finds out that this method requires cruel suffering and can only be mastered by someone with immense willpower and wisdom. With a determined grin, he thinks that cultivation without a challenge is no fun, and that his past as a total nerd is finally going to pay off. He then moves on to the main content but gets confused when he sees a stick figure striking a super weird pose. Inside the book, there's a body refinement illustration that he needs to study carefully. Our boy gets the logic behind the pose but is completely embarrassed by how ridiculous it looks. Despite the embarrassment, he decides to give it a shot and starts mimicking the bizarre pose under the sunlight. Blushing bright red, he tries to convince himself that his senior brother wouldn't lie to him. With that, our MC tells himself to focus and fills with determination, believing he can master the technique. We see the Ink Scroll Pavilion in the Jinn Nation. Inside, a man asks a white-haired woman if her draft is ready, because the deadline is closing in. The girl gets annoyed and tells the guy to get off her back, as she's already rushing. The man complains that her book sold less than 3 copies and suggests she write something simpler and more direct. Furious, the young woman tells him to write it himself if he's so bent out of shape, since she likes that kind of story. Changing the subject, she asks what he found out about the request she made. The girl gets super hyped with the news and can't wait to finally go to the academy and meet interesting people. 3 days have passed, and our young man continues his training at the top of the cliff. But the effort is so great that he ends up with internal bleeding from pushing himself too hard. With a tired look, he complains that he's coughed up blood 3 times already and still hasn't figured anything out. He then remembers the manual says the talented get it on the first try and wonders if he's really that bad. Even exhausted, our boy refuses to give up and decides to try one more time with all his persistence. From that day on, he ramps up his training to 11 hours a day with only 1 hour of rest. With a look of pure determination, he swears he won't give up until he masters this cultivation method. He then starts thinking that the simpler the method, the deeper its meaning. The name of the technique is observing the heavens, and he wonders if it means to observe everything or to have a global view. He recalls a book about the 3 eyes: mortal vision, celestial vision, and dharma vision. Our young man remembers that the dharma eye allows one to perceive the essence and laws of everything. He then decides he needs to reach a higher level and perceive the essence of all things. With this in mind, he focuses completely on understanding the essence and laws of the universe. The words, observing the heavens, and dharma eye, connect in his mind. His eyes shine brightly, and with a calm expression, he finally seems to understand. Observing the golden landscape, our young man says that he now understands a little about the technique. He says that ordinary people look at the sky and feel its vastness, but they don't understand what it truly is. With a look of revelation, he shouts that the manual means everyone already has a demon, God within them. Our young man then calls himself an idiot for almost failing to reach an enlightenment that was so close. So, our MC understands that he doesn't need to look at the heavens, but rather look within his own heart to find out. He focuses on searching the depths of his soul to find his own demon, God. A gentle breeze passes by him at that moment, and suddenly, our protagonist's eyes fly wide open. Before him, an immense creature with multiple arms emerges amidst a landscape of pure flames. Our boy's eyes gleam as he finally understands that this is his inner demon God. Over at the 10 Nations Academy, there are some pretty shady-looking people. One of the side characters, with a creepy smile, believes this is a sign that the heavens have not abandoned them. However, another guy scolds him, telling him to get a grip because he looks more like a demon seed. The other side character says there's no reason to get excited, as celestial signs are never accurate. And to be sure, it would be better to wait and observe for a while longer. The guy with the jagged teeth says that if this is really gold, it won't be able to stay hidden. Meanwhile, the star continues its path across the night sky, shining brighter than any other. Now in the imperial palace of the Great Xia, a woman informs Her Majesty that the stars have shifted. The young woman then wonders what would happen if this divine person appeared outside their kingdom. The red-haired emperor remains seated on his throne, looking quite calm about the situation. With a fierce gaze, he orders them to capture this person, because everything in this world belongs to his empire. In the frozen beast plains, the same shooting star streaks across the night sky. On the ice, a monstrous beast with sharp teeth is lying down as the snow continues to fall. Suddenly, a white-haired warrior appears in front of a creature, carrying it by its tusk. We get a close-up of the muscular man, who looks like he's from some wild tribe or maybe even a demon. He cracks a smile and finds the birth of a person with divine power quite interesting. The warrior then says that demons like him will have to work twice as hard because of this. After that, we are taken to Changju's residence, which sits atop a distant mountain. There, our MC's senior brother is feeling sick from reading a book and not understanding a single thing. He throws the manual on the floor and wonders what kind of maniac created such a difficult cultivation method. But he calms down and thinks that it doesn't matter if he can't master the technique. He has flashbacks of his boss, who would probably flip out if he thought the book was a fake. With a depressed look, he complains that the darn loan shark won't leave him alone because of the debt. Looking at the sky, he sighs, not understanding what's been wrong with him lately, and sees that shooting star crossing the sky. He says that every midnight he gets super melancholic and wonders if this is what depression feels like. Smoking his pipe, he then questions what the real meaning of living anyway is. We see that man being watched from the cliff as someone observes him. The observer is a young woman who wonders what's gotten into her senior brother to be stargazing. She then questions if something is worrying him and asks for the opinion of the second senior brother, Xu Luchin. The man replies that it's because of the rookie's bad talent and that their senior brother has zero patience. With that, he decides that tomorrow he will teach the rookie and give his brother a lesson on being a good role model. Returning our young man, we once again see the image of the multi-armed demon god in his mind. The creature's face is like that of a Buddha statue, with its eyes glowing amidst the fire. Meanwhile, our boy continues to meditate under the starry sky, completely focused on his discovery. With his eyes glowing, he finally understands that this is his own unique body cultivation technique. He keeps his mind focused before the immense creature that represents his inner strength. The creature holds him in the palm of its hand, and its presence is so powerful it's almost impossible to look at. The demon god's eyes open, and an intense light completely illuminates our young man. With that, a flood of information about the cultivation enters our protagonist's mind directly. Back in the real world, our boy continues to meditate under the night sky, surrounded by mountains. Suddenly, he opens his eyes, which now glow with an intense blue light showing his enlightenment. He stands up and understands the ancient art that uses the sky as a hammer and the earth as a forge to refine the body. This technique is divided into 5 different stages, ranging from a lesser demon to an ancestral god. Currently, the method he learned is the lesser demon god chapter, which already greatly strengthens the body. The key to cultivation is to use spiritual energy to connect heaven and earth and forge the body with them. But the process is very dangerous, as the body breaks and reforms repeatedly, requiring immense willpower. Our young man understands perfectly that the stronger the cultivation method, the greater the test of perseverance. But he soon panics because to even start, he needs a gigantic amount of spiritual energy. The problem is he has zero energy, so he remembers hearing that pills can generate power. He hesitates a bit, since medicines can be dangerous, but remembers his master said the second senior brother is good with pills. We see the residence of the second senior brother, which sits on a mountaintop. Inside, we see the second brother focused as he masterfully creates a glowing pill in his hand. He says that tomorrow, he will teach his senior brother what it means to be a true teacher and role model. Meanwhile, at the senior brother's residence, the day has already broken, and the mood is quite different. He's on his knees, completely frustrated for not being able to understand his cultivation manual. With a look of pure desperation, he yells that he can't understand a single thing that's written. He, tired from all the effort, he simply gives up and throws himself on the floor, saying he won't think about it anymore. Lying down, he reflects that all hard work is useless because, in the end, everyone just turns into a pile of dirt. The master appears behind him while the senior brother seems to have lost all hope. The master watches him, seeming to know exactly what's going on with his disciple. Approaching, the master asks how his student Changju is doing with the sword technique manual. The young man gets up with an enlightened smile and says it doesn't matter if he understands, because the secret is to let go. The master is blinded by the light coming from his disciple and wonders what in the world he has been cultivating. With a calm smile, Changju explains that he hasn't cultivated anything, but now he just doesn't care about anything anymore. Sighing, the master says he expected this and decides they will go to the Silent Forest Mountains. The master says a life or death test will help him grow, but he doesn't look too happy about it. Hearing the name Silent Forest Mountains, his expression shifts to pure terror. This is the most dangerous region in Qingzhou, full of powerful and treacherous demonic beasts. The master explains that while the young man trains, he can hunt some beasts to make money for the others. Changyu then changes his mind and runs off, yelling that he won't go, but his master reminds him of his promise. We see the Four Thunders Sword Sect, one of the three great sects of Qingzhou. There, an older man congratulates his disciples, as 7 of them have reached a high level of cultivation. He continues, saying that 2 of them have even reached perfection, which is an impressive feat. Proud, the leader praises the young ones, saying they are truly the greatest prodigies in Qingzhou. But he warns them that the next sword conference won't be easy, and that he will train them personally. The disciples are shocked, as they've never even seen the sect master before, and wonder what happened. The leader says the reason doesn't matter and reveals that a hidden sect, will also participate in the event. The news worries everyone, as the presence of a hidden sect makes everything much more complicated. These hidden sects are remnants of ancient forces and possess much more powerful inheritances. The script then takes us to the Grand Hall of the Four Thunders Sword Sect, where the meeting is taking place. In the main hall, the sect leaders bow to the master, who says there's no need for formalities, as he called them for something serious. The sect master then enters the main hall with his subordinates, and the atmosphere becomes quite tense. Turning to everyone, the leader says he has summoned them to discuss a very important matter. At this, one of the attendees asks what happened, and if the problem is related to the Sword Tower token. But the elder denies this assumption and says the matter is much bigger, mentioning the 10 Nations Academy. One of the women is surprised by the name and questions if the legendary academy is going to recruit students again. This academy is the most elite on the entire continent, and its recruitment is so strict that sometimes no one is accepted. The master then confirms that the imperial court will send someone to select prodigies for the academy. All the leaders are very surprised and immediately ask who this mysterious person will be. It's explained that on the continent, the court's power is greater than the sects, so they can't oppose them. With that, the elder shows everyone a scroll with a painting so they can better understand the situation. The image on the scroll depicts an elegant person in the middle of a field with a golden light in the background. The leaders recognize the painting style and wonder if the figure portrayed is the so-called envoy from the court. The master then recalls that the painter disappeared 6 months ago, and that he would have been accepted into any sect if he wanted. The elder then tells a story about a genius swordsman who was expelled from the academy and became an inspector general. One of the attendees comments that there are rumors this inspector is a very handsome man, and they wonder why they don't know him. One of the leaders is doubtful and asks if the master has any concrete proof for his assumptions. With a confident smile and shining eyes, the elder states that he obviously has proof. He then throws the scroll into the air, and an intense golden light begins to emanate from the painting. The scroll's energy explodes, and a wave of power forcefully pushes all the leaders back. In that moment, the figure in the painting seems to come to life, and the pressure becomes overwhelming for everyone. The subordinates struggle to stay on their feet against the powerful aura coming from the simple scroll. After the energy dissipates, the elder asks if they still doubt his incredible deduction. He explains that the painting contains sword intent, and since the painter isn't a cultivator, there's only one option. With that, the others are impressed and praise their master's wisdom for deducing everything from just a few details. The sect leader smirks arrogantly and says, of course, he was right because he's just that smart. He also reveals that the inspector is eccentric and trades treasures for simple things during his travels. One of the attendees agrees, and another asks if they should try to please this powerful man. But the master forbids it, as such a cheap trick would only earn the contempt of someone at that level. Thinking to himself, the leader boasts about his wisdom and wonders what the sect would do without him. We return to our protagonist, who is meditating alone on the mountain at night. He decides the demon god art is too risky, so he'd rather ask about pills. Just then, a familiar voice calls him junior brother, and he turns around surprised. The man introduces himself as his second senior brother and says to call him Luchin. Our protagonist is shocked, as he didn't expect a personal visit from his senior. He quickly bows in respect and greets him formally. Luchin explains that their senior brother is busy, so he came to teach him alchemy. Our boy feels insecure and asks if the reason is because his talent is considered poor. His brother comforts him and says not to be discouraged, because having poor talent for the sword isn't everything. With a determined look, our young man promises he will train hard to be recognized. The senior brother then raises a finger and begins to gather his energy for a technique. With a wave of his hand, a huge cauldron appears. The giant cauldron floats in the sky, impressing him. Looking at our MC, he says the talk is over and it's time to start the alchemy. Our young man's eyes sparkle with excitement, and he agrees with great enthusiasm. With that, the older brother explains that the path of alchemy holds the profound mysteries of heaven and earth. He then asks what the most powerful existence in alchemy is, and our hero finds this question very familiar. He remembers hearing this exact same question before, but about the path of the sword instead of alchemy. With his eyes sparkling, our young man wonders if his second brother is also a hidden, super strong master. The MC replies that the strongest alchemist is above all else and can drive countless powerhouses wild. That's why even the strongest cultivators must show them respect and try to get on their good side. The senior says that's thinking too small and asks him to think even bigger and bolder. So, the MC suggests that the strongest pill can enhance one's constitution and turn anyone into a genius. The older brother says that's still too shallow. The strongest alchemist refines the heavens and the earth. The idea that every single pill is an entire world leaves our protagonist in a complete state of shock. Next, we see an incredible image of an entire universe being transformed into one giant pill. This gets him super hyped up again, thinking that the path of the pill is just as powerful as the path of the sword. So, the MC asks if his senior has already reached that level, and he replies that it's something like that. Hearing this, our hero yells out in shock, believing he has found another hidden master in the sect. The MC thinks that everyone in the sect is a hidden master, while his senior worries he's starting to act just like the other brother. With a strange look, he challenges the MC to refine the heavens and the earth for him to see with his own eyes. The master says that since he's a newbie, he'll only teach him the basics, and the young man thanks him for the guidance. The senior explains that every medicine has a poison and that he will teach him how to refine pills without any toxins. But inwardly, he's sweating bullets, thinking that he needs to keep up the act so he doesn't get found out. He explains that toxicity and medicinal power coexist, and if you remove one, the other disappears too. The purple energy represents the inherent toxicity of the ingredients. With that, the older brother reveals that the secret is to not use medicinal ingredients to create the pill. The protagonist is confused, prompting the brother to tell him to remember that just because you don't see something doesn't mean it isn't there. The master uses the example that he wouldn't have believed in sword immortals when he was still immortal. The MC understands the logic and compares his situation to that of a frog in a well. The senior explains that pure spiritual energy gets tainted during the growth of the herbs. Therefore, toxin-free refining discards the ingredients and instead condenses the pure energy of heaven and earth. With his eyes shining, our hero is stunned by the thought of creating pills out of thin air. He then asks if someone without a spiritual root like himself can take pills to increase their power. The senior replies that it's possible, but nobody does it because the effect is very small and expensive. Our boy is a little disappointed by the news, but he was already expecting it. The older brother then says they will begin, and he will teach him the basic skills of alchemy. The master thinks the boy is a good student and that he'll show the other brother how to be a proper teacher. With that, we are taken to the Silent Forest Mountains. There, we see the sect master and our hero's other brother walking together through the dense forest. The disciple asks if the other brother will be okay looking after the newcomer all by himself. The leader says the boy has a calm nature and strong mental fortitude, and that he can handle anything. Suddenly, a strange noise startles our boy's brother. He spins around in a panic and shouts, asking what that sound was. Then we see a small purple rat with a horn scampering by. The sect master laughs at his disciple for getting scared by a simple rat. But right after, a giant demonic beast with crystals on its back appears. The next day, on a distant mountain, we see a lone house on top of a rocky peak. Wakes up, stretching. He then walks through the temple, admiring the beauty of the place while thinking about how peaceful it all is. Soon gets frustrated, being in such a beautiful cultivation world without any spiritual power. He then thinks that the most important thing now is to learn more about cultivation and find a solution. So, he decides to go to the library his master mentioned to expand his knowledge. Our boy arrives at the library pavilion and admires the place's simple and organized style. With a smile, he thinks that this is the true demeanor of a hidden world sect. The MC then notices that there's only a single incense stick burning outside the main hall. With a funny look on his face, he wonders if the sect is so broke that they can't afford more incense. But he soon realizes it means that with sincerity, just one stick is enough to move the heavens. With that, the protagonist opens the large red doors to finally enter the sect's library. Arriving there, the young man walks among the shelves. He then begins to read the titles of the books. The books contain all sorts of skills. Our hero is shocked to see that just the titles alone overwhelm him with so much power. With a huge smile and sparkling eyes, he shouts that he is completely in love with this place. But he quickly calms himself down, telling himself not to get carried away and to keep a clear mind. He then takes a deep breath, trying to control himself. He then understands that he needs to take it slow and learn everything step by step, without rushing. The sun rises, illuminating the temple. Our hero wakes up a bit drowsy in the library. With a hand on his head, he complains about having to start the day's practice right when he was getting the hang of things. Even so, he's satisfied that he finally has a basic understanding of this world and its methods. He never expected the influence of the mortal dynasties to still be so strong in the cultivation world. He thinks he should have taken the imperial exams and become a scholar. But he soon realizes that if he had joined the court, he would have missed the chance to join the sect. Suddenly, a female voice calls out to him, pulling him from his thoughts. A stunning woman appears and asks what he's doing. She introduces herself as his senior sister, Chen Lingru, and says it's a pleasure to finally meet him. Our protagonist is left completely speechless and blushing at Chen Lingru's radiant beauty. Chen Lingru asks why he's blushing, and the MC lies, saying it's just because of the heat. With a smile, she encourages him to work hard and promises to teach him the Supreme Tao in the future. Our hero is surprised by the mention of the Supreme Tao and wonders if she's also a master. but he quickly dismisses the idea, laughing and thinking she's way too young to be an unparalleled master. The protagonist then says he has a question for her, and the young woman encourages him to ask. He shows her a cultivation manual and asks if he can practice the technique described in the book. The senior sister reads the title, 3,600 Immortal Aperture Arts. With the book in hand, she says that, of course, he can cultivate this technique without any problem. The MC then questions if it isn't dangerous to try cultivating without spiritual power and risk a Kai deviation. Chenlinger replies that it's not, because this is a very basic technique, and it would be impossible for him to get hurt with it. In her thoughts, she reveals that all the manuals are fake and that it would be a miracle if they actually worked. Suddenly, Chenlinger notices the MC is standing completely still and calls out to him, worried, asking what happened. Tears of happiness stream down our hero's face as he thinks that this is great. Our hero says he has finally found the most suitable cultivation method for him. With that, the senior sister congratulates him and tells him to believe in himself. The young woman then turns to leave, saying she was just passing by and couldn't stay long. After she leaves, the protagonist goes back to reading the book with a smile on his face. The book explains that the technique of the 3,600 immortal apertures is actually very simple. The human body holds infinite hidden treasures, just like that of a demonic beast. And these apertures are like demonic beasts sealed within the human body. With each unlocked aperture, the speed of spiritual energy absorption doubles. With all apertures unlocked, the cultivation speed would be 3,600 times that of a normal person. Our hero thinks that his biggest problem is his lack of spiritual roots, which makes him weak. But he realizes that if he masters this technique, he can completely make up for his shortcomings. He thinks of all the other techniques he has already learned, like the Sword of Four Thunders, and also the Primordial God Demon Body Refining Art. In addition to the toxin-free pill refining from his second older brother, he wonders just how strong he would become if he could get spiritual energy. Eager, he pushes his thoughts aside and leaves the library to cultivate. See Jingly Mountain. We see the protagonist's master stuck in the ground. They are fighting the enormous beast that had appeared earlier. The sect master yells for his companion to escape using a talisman. But the younger one refuses to run, telling the old man he would never abandon him. With his sword in hand, the young man tells his master to stay put and claims it's not time to run yet. The master is surprised and wonders when that boy's back got so broad. Soon, the protagonist's brother begins to emanate a powerful aura. The old man wonders if the kid was hiding a trump card like this all along. He then charges forward with a powerful attack towards the fierce creature. With a determined look and a confident smile, he strikes the creature. Brother yells, telling the creature to get lost. But with a simple flick, the creature sends him flying, making him land with his butt in the air. The sect master is completely shocked, his expectations totally shattered. The young man turns to the beast and says he has shown off enough and has no regrets if he goes down now. The creature then counterattacks with a spinning blast of purple energy. The beast launches a powerful energy beam. Warriors cry as they say goodbye to their lives. Suddenly, a powerful female voice asks, what kind of demon dares to act so recklessly? The creature begins to float in a weird way, and suddenly the creature explodes, leaving the sect master and his disciple ecstatic. The older brother recognizes the woman's clothes. Beast defeated, the two look at the mysterious woman. She turns around and asks what two weak cultivators are doing running around by themselves. The older brother then points in shock and shouts that she's the third elder of the Four Thunders sect. The woman looks at them with disdain. The woman then notices something and thinks for a moment. Dawns on her. Everyone around the woman starts to realize it too. The woman starts to break into a cold sweat and tries to calm herself down. The older brother and his master also try to keep their cool. The woman and the other masters approach the sect leader and the brother. Then they stare each other down. The two have a strange look on their faces as they observe the MC's brother. He notices them staring and wonders why they're looking at him like that. The older brother's eye twitches, and his expression turns more serious. The elder is frightened by his gaze and thinks he must be a true sword expert. Trying to break the ice, the elder stammers, asking what they're doing here. The sect master is confused by her sudden politeness and doesn't know how to respond. With a desperate look, he replies that it was nothing and they were just taking a stroll. Awkward silence fills the air. The lady then notices that the sect leader's robe is torn. She asks he's injured. She then offers him a spirit pill, saying it can heal his wounds. The two of them are dumbfounded, shouting that the pill is extremely rare. The older brother is suspicious of her kindness and tells the master that there must be a catch. He thanks her for the offer, but says they have urgent business and need to leave. As they were about to leave, one of the lady's disciples shouts for them to wait. The older brother was expecting this and thinks to himself that he knew there was a catch. He then approaches and says he would like to ask the master a question. The disciple bows and asks which of them he believes to be the true essence of the way of the sword. The sect leader is speechless and wonders what kind of crazy question that is. With a confident smile, his passive skill activates, and he says that's an excellent question. He turns his back and comments that he asked the right person. The master panics and tells the disciple to hold back, as they are from a major sect. Holding a blade of grass, he declares that this is the way of the sword. The elders group trembles in fear from the immense aura emanating from our older brother. Su Chenyu then drops some serious wisdom, saying the path of the sword is like a single blade of grass. But a woman is stunned by this, wondering what the heck that's even supposed to mean, since she's never heard anything like it. At this point, the sect master is so embarrassed, he just wants the ground to open up and swallow him whole. So the woman asks the MC's senior brother to explain it better since she didn't get it at all, and he says the path of the sword is in the heart. With his eyes closed, he thinks of his own upgraded version of the phrase, a sword that shatters the stars. Internally, he's patting himself on the back for how cool his line sounded, even though he has no clue what it actually means. The lady in purple and her companion are completely blown away by his words. Then, one of the other master's eyes go wide, and he says it feels like he's had a major epiphany. The man excitedly celebrates, shouting that he truly gets it now, leaving the others shocked. The other two start to panic, thinking they're the only ones who didn't get it and are worried they'll look like idiots. So suddenly, they all start yelling that they understood everything too, praising how simple and easy it was. The sect master is just disgusted by what a bunch of morons these masters are. He can't take it anymore and wonders what on earth they could have possibly understood and if everyone's just gone nuts. Su Chenju stands with his back to the crowd of crazies he's created. He just says he said what he needed to, and how much they absorb depends on their own understanding. The female masters are totally crushing on Su Chenju, who's just farming that aura. On Qinyan Dao Sec Mountain, our hero is deep in meditation, super focused. Our protagonist then admires the starry sky. He mentions that he has already found the immortal aperture in his body for cultivation. He gets frustrated when he realizes he needs a massive amount of spiritual power to activate it. He figures the basic cultivation methods like absorbing air are actually the most complex. He decides he needs to think like the very first cultivator who created the Q condensation method to understand it. In his mind, he imagines how current cultivators just follow a path without knowing the original reason behind it. Our hero compares it to math, where a kid knows that 1 + 1 = 2, but doesn't understand, so why? He believes that if he can crack this fundamental cultivation mystery, he can walk his own unique path. With a confident smile, the protagonist fills with determination to create his own cultivation technique. He thinks he can't waste any time and must seize every moment to uncover the truth. 7 days fly by as our boy continues to meditate, with birds perched on his shoulders. He opens his eyes, disappointed, having made zero progress. Really ticks him off. We see Yiping's residence. Frustrated with his lack of progress, our hero decides to chill out by doing some drawing, which is his favorite hobby. Taking advantage of the nice weather, he decides to paint the beautiful landscape he sees from his home. But suddenly he hears someone calling him junior brother. It was his senior, Su Chenju, who is surprised to find out the protagonist also knows how to draw. He walks up to our protagonist and asks him to paint his portrait. Yiping accepts the request and asks if his senior would like a background in the drawing. Confused, Su Chenju questions the need for a background and turns it down, wanting just a pure portrait. Our hero agrees and says he'll do his best as a way to pay his senior back for teaching him alchemy. A short time later, the protagonist calls his senior brother, letting him know the drawing is finished. Surprised, Su Chenju takes the scroll and is impressed by how quickly the drawing was done. Looking at the portrait, he admires his own good looks and wonders if he's really that handsome. Su Chenyu praises our boy's professional work, and he humbly accepts the credit. Yiping then offers to inscribe a poem on the painting, but his senior refuses, saying it's already perfect. He thinks the whole point is to show off his face, and a poem would just detract from the masterpiece. He mentions he was worried about our hero's cultivation, but seeing that everything's fine, he can leave now. So Su Chenju says his goodbyes and leaves, already planning to show the portrait to everyone. Alone again, the protagonist looks back at the sky and has a major epiphany about cultivation. With his eyes shining, he understands that he shouldn't force the absorption of energy, but instead connect with heaven and earth. Our boy gets it now, everything has a spirit, and the spiritual energy that wants to integrate with him will do so naturally. At that moment, spiritual energy begins to flow. Suddenly, a red and purple energy manifests in the form of a ferocious beast. This energy then transforms into a majestic candle dragon that lets out a mighty roar. Our protagonist is shocked by the sight. The candle dragon stares him down, and our hero realizes his immortal aperture is actually this mythical creature. Baffled by this discovery and wonders if it's really Zhu Juyan, the legendary candle dragon. Yiping remembers that in his past life, Zhu Juyan was one of the most powerful deities in mythology. He recalls that this deity could control time, day, and night, being omnipotent and immeasurable. He then gets hyped because now that he's opened his immortal aperture, he can finally cultivate the art of gods and demons. Now he looks at the painting he made on the stone. With a new perspective and a renewed state of mind, he decides the drawing needs to be changed. The protagonist then approaches the painting and starts making alterations to reflect his newfound understanding. When he's done, he admires the work, which now shows a blue sky breaking through the clouds and mist. Meanwhile, on the cultivation cliff, the second senior brother is meditating peacefully. Suddenly, blue lightning starts to strike over Yiping's cliff. He then looks at the sky and notices the clouds are stirring strangely. Surprised, he wonders what that thundercloud is. Realizing what's happening, he panics. It's about to pour, and he didn't bring in the laundry? So he bolts, worried because those were the fanciest clothes Su Changju owned. Back at Yiping's place, spiritual energy is flowing intensely around him. In this state, the protagonist can see the form of a dragon within himself, a mystical constellation. Our hero begins to absorb the surrounding spiritual energy at an overwhelming rate. He realizes the energy is flowing into his body like a river, and he doesn't have to do anything to absorb it. Our boy is floored by the speed of the absorption, thinking that not even someone in the nascent soul stage could pull this off. For normal cultivators, key refining is a process of pulling in and refining energy, but for him, it's different. For Yiping, the process is direct. The spiritual energy just enters him without needing to be refined. Our protagonist doesn't know it yet, but he has started down a unique cultivation path, different from the traditional one. Even with this incredible speed, our hero notices that only his first immortal aperture has opened, the second one hasn't budged. He then decides to start cultivating the primordial art of God, demon body refining, since the second aperture won't be opening anytime soon. Our boy then extends his hand to begin the cultivation process. He then borrows the power of the great earth to strengthen himself. With this, he uses spiritual energy to connect with the power of heaven and earth. Our protagonist summons a supreme furnace, manifesting a fire dragon. He uses celestial power to forge a divine hammer for the refining. Purple lightning flashes from the sky and a large golden hammer materializes. The divine hammer descends toward the dragon furnace. With a satisfied smile, Yiping celebrates the technique's success, saying that with spiritual energy as a guide, everything went perfectly. Suddenly, a vortex of purple energy forms in the sky, and he senses the power is way too strong. With his eyes gleaming, our hero realizes the force he's unleashed is much greater than he ever imagined. A massive beam of energy descends from the sky, directly on top of him. The overwhelming energy is about to hit him. Seeing there's no escape, his eyes go wide. Explosion goes off as it hits the protagonist. It is so powerful that Yiping's body begins to disintegrate. He then screams in pain as the purple energy consumes his arm and part of his body. With the explosion, Yiping's body is half disintegrated. At this moment, our hero wonders if this is it for him. Even to absurd pain, he grits his teeth. His eyes glow with an intense blue light. Energy then begins to rebuild his body. After fully recovering, he's left panting. He gives a tired look. His furnace begins to emanate a powerful fire energy. To protect himself, the protagonist quickly surrounds himself with a golden shield. The fire starts to swirl around him, forming a whirlpool. Our protagonist is then swallowed by the flames and begins to agonize. He completely envelopes him. His body is caught right in those powerful flames. To even scream or writhe in agony, he's paralyzed. Finally, his body is completely charred. Even completely burned, his fingers make small movements. His eyes snap open in pure fury. Shrouded in smoke, he gets back up. He then screams with all his might, feeling the immense pain all over his body. Envelopes him again as his skin begins to reform. And like the armored Titan, he goes from being raw muscle back to having skin. His body emerges as if rejuvenated, completely ripped. After that agonizing pain, our boy feels a sense of relief. He collapses totally exhausted. After a while, our boy is still passed out on the ground. He slowly starts to get up. The first thing he feels is an unbearable pain throughout his entire body. And like a titan who's gone through unforgettable pain, he rises. He coughs up a bit of blood. But despite all that, he looks forward with an expression kind of like mobs. With a smile worthy of Momo, our boy comments that he actually enjoyed this new sensation. We're back at the Jinglin Mountain Range. There, the group is chatting about whether that senior was really the commander of the Jin Nation. Just then, the group leader turns around, her eyes sparkling, and asks if they're doubting her judgment. The two subordinates panic and say they were just curious since the so-called senior seemed kinda weak. The woman gets annoyed and calls them fools for not getting the situation. She then asks if they seriously think the old guy next to the senior was his master. The leader gets frustrated with how slow on the uptake her men are and yells that the answer is staring them right in the face. Even so, one of the guys still asks why someone so powerful would need to disguise themselves like that. She explains that he's a special envoy on a secret mission and his identity can't be exposed. The woman believes that power comes with wisdom and suspects he might have even founded his own sect. She says no one that weak would ever claim that a blade of grass can slice the sun, the moon, and the stars. With that, she declares that a master's presence can't be faked, as it's something forged over time. She adds that the shifty-looking old guy could never be a real master. Far away, the sect master sneezes and wonders who's talking smack about him behind his back. Back with the group, the leader says she's worried about their future if they keep thinking like that. The two then strike a pose and bow respectfully to their master. The master then tells them to remember that what happened can't be shared with anyone besides the leader. She adds that they'll probably meet again at the sword tournament and warns them not to do anything stupid. She finishes by saying they're foolish disciples, and without a smart master like her, how would they ever survive? Elsewhere at the edge of the Jinglin Mountains, the two masters are celebrating that they finally got out of that mess. The sect leader swears he'll never return to that godforsaken mountain range. After parting ways with the group from the Four Seasons Thunder Sword sect, they faced several other dangerous situations. Each time they barely escaped with their lives. It weren't for the supreme, grade pill given by the Thunder Elder, he'd already be pushing up daisies. The old man lying on the ground grumbles that he thought it would be an easy trip, but he almost lost half his life in there. The senior brother says his master should be grateful since he managed to get some beast materials, unlike him. He says he made no progress in his cultivation or understanding, so he wonders what happened to his great fortune after surviving a great disaster. The old man grumbles that the materials he collected are barely worth a few coins, which isn't enough to buy new techniques for his brothers and sisters. He says he's realized that reputation and morality are illusions and that the only truth is that money is hard to come by. He thinks that when he gets back, he'll shamelessly beg Yiki Ping to make another painting. As the old man rants, the senior brother agrees that making money is tough. Then, the senior brother asks if the second senior brother has already asked him for a painting. At this, the master's eyes go wide and he lights up, realizing his disciple is right. So, the two of them sprint off to sea, and the master says that if he gets a painting, he'll give our boy the title of God of Wealth. The next day at the senior disciple's residence, he wakes up. With a shiver, Su Chenyu wonders if something bad is about to happen. Su Chenyu is happy because his alchemy technique has improved, and he's in a good mood, so he decides to visit our boy and check on him. Then he thinks about how pathetic Su Chenyu, the first senior brother, is moping on the cliff's edge, thinking he's some kind of poet just because he has no talent. Then we see our boy's residence. Ping meditating. Su Chenyu approaches and asks about his junior brother's cultivation. Seeing the second senior brother, Yi Ping bows and replies that he's made a little progress. Our hero thinks that even though he had a major breakthrough the day before, he needs to stay humble. Chenyu is shocked because our boy said he made a little progress. He then asks what he meant by little progress. Yi Ping replies that he's referring to the art of alchemy he taught him. Su Chenyu gets irritated and tells his junior brother not to lie, especially with his average aptitude. With a confused look, Yi Ping insists that he's not lying. We see the shock on Su Chenyu's face as he gets angry, thinking our boy is lying through his teeth. He says it's true and shows the pill he forged to the senior brother. Su Chenyu asks if that's a spirit pill, and he confirms it. Su Chenyu is annoyed, thinking it's bad enough that he's lying, but he's also buying pills and passing them off as his own work. Su Chenyu becomes furious and decides he needs to teach our boy a lesson in honesty. So, he challenges Yi Ping to refine a pill right in front of him so he can give him a few pointers. The senior brother smirks slyly, thinking he's finally going to call the kid's bluff. Our protagonist gets worried, saying the process takes hours and would waste his master's time. Su Chenyu takes this as an excuse and starts taunting our hero, saying he doesn't have the guts. But Yi Ping simply agrees to do it, leaving the senior brother completely stunned. With no way out, he tells our boy to start, thinking Yi Ping must just be bluffing. Our protagonist then sits down and begins to meditate. The senior brother, still confident, believes this will be the perfect chance to humiliate him. After 1 hour, Su Chenyu's expression changes, he looks a bit confused. 2 hours go by, and the older cultivator is already breaking out in a cold sweat. 3 hours into the process, the senior brother's eyes are wide open in total shock. By the 4th hour, his face is a mask of pure disbelief. Suddenly, Yi Ping finishes the refinement and shows the pill he just created. In his hand is a perfect spirit pill. Completely floored by the result, Su Chenyu asks for a moment to process it all. Our boy then gets confused and asks if there's something wrong with the pill. Just then, the senior brother has a revelation and thinks that his other brother's depression wasn't because of a lack of talent after all. Our boy asks if the senior brother is okay and if there's something wrong with the pill. Su Chenyu tries to keep his cool. He thinks to himself that his greatest strength has always been his composure. At that moment, he tries once more to calm himself. Su Chenyu screams that his Dao heart is shattered. Our hero, with a worried face, asks if the senior brother is alright. At that, the senior brother turns and says he's fine. Hearing the reply, our boy is relieved, as he was really worried. Su Chenyu thinks something is off, and he declares that there's no such thing as non-toxic alchemy, and the pill's color is all wrong. The appearance of a pill varies greatly with its quality. The senior brother comments that this pill is almost transparent and is way too big. He believes that by absorbing it, he will expose our boy's lie. Yi Ping takes a deep breath and absorbs the pill. Su Chenyu is shocked. Su Chenyu is terrified as he realizes it's a supreme-grade pill. Then he remembers his master warned him not to expose himself, but the situation is making that difficult. He thinks about keeping his cool, trying not to think about anything so he doesn't give himself away. So, he tells his junior brother to keep cultivating and that he needs to leave. Our boy is confused and wonders if the senior wasn't going to teach him. Thinking the senior brother isn't feeling well, he decides to continue practicing alchemy. Our hero remembers that he didn't tell him about his breakthrough in breath control. With that, Yi Ping scolds himself for being arrogant and reminds himself to be humble. Our boy returns to his meditation. Then we see the second senior brother's residence. The senior brother is pacing, angry and frustrated. He then thinks that he studied alchemy for 10 years and never even produced a single medium-grade pill. Su Chenyu screams and asks himself how he can even face himself. And in a fit of rage, he throws the pill away out of sheer frustration. Su Chenyu screams and wonders what kind of person this is. Su Chenyu, on the floor, cries that he tried to be strong, but our hero is a monster. At that moment, the senior brother starts writhing on the floor. He then wonders if he's really going to kick the bucket like this, because that would be so embarrassing. Su Chenyu is on top of Blue Cloud Cliff. There he complains that life is so hard. Looking up, he says that even the moon looks lonely on this dark night. So he decides to use the mood to write a poem on our boy's painting. With that, he decides he will turn all this sadness into poetry, just like the great poets did. The first senior brother then focuses and thinks about what the perfect first line would be. With a burst of inspiration, he starts writing about snowflakes and the whistling of the north wind. He continues the poem, talking about the third day of the fourth month, where the wind is warm but the heart is cold. But Su Chenyu stops and thinks that the first half is good, but the second part didn't turn out well. So he crosses out what he wrote and decides to rewrite the whole thing to make it perfect. Su Chenyu thinks of another line about climbing a cliff to gaze at the moon, but doesn't like that idea either. After much thought, he finally yells that he's had a brilliant idea for his poem. Su Chenyu then starts writing on the painting with a very strange pose and a lot of vigor. Upon finishing, the first senior brother looks very pleased with the result of his masterpiece. The final result is the exact line he had discarded earlier, with a huge black streak through the middle. Even so, Su Chenyu gets emotional and says that it's a perfect quatrain that expresses his life. He believes his brother will be deeply moved when he reads it, and his mood finally improves a little. At this, Su Chenyu says that when his brother returns, he will let the kid study his masterpiece. Looking up at the dark sky, he realizes his melancholy and sadness have returned, even stronger than before. The first senior brother decides to stay a bit longer and laments that only his brother understands his pain. So he sits alone on the cliff enjoying the moonlight. But from down below, another figure was watching the young man sitting on the mountaintop. The senior sister wonders why the third senior brother also likes to be alone on the cliff. Another guy explains that actually the second senior brother secretly copies the first's actions. She then asks if he thinks it looks cool. The girl disagrees and says she saw the second brother crying and thinks it has something to do with Yiping. The third brother is confused and doesn't understand what the connection to Yiping would be. The young woman suggests that our hero's talent is so bad that they can't take it anymore and asks him to have the fourth senior brother train Yiping. He refuses on the spot since an assessment is coming up and tells her to call the other brothers. The girl says they've gone out and suggests asking the senior sister for help. But he dismisses the idea, saying her way of thinking is bizarre and it's better to let the second one suffer a bit more. She comments that, looking at the senior brother, he wouldn't be able to solve this. With that, the third senior brother runs off and tells her not to drag him into this mess. Alone, the girl wonders if she should really ask the senior sister for help. The first senior brother remains on the cliff, his thoughtful gaze, and he complains that his right eye won't stop twitching for no reason. With an unhinged cackle, he shouts that tomorrow can't possibly be worse than today. Then he goes back home to sleep. Morning at the Qinyun Dao sect. We see that the two have finally returned from their trip. The sect leader cries with joy and screams that he's finally back home, safe and sound. The senior brother and his master are terrified, and Su Chenyu begs not to go back to the mountain because he'd still like to live a few more years. But the sect master's expression shifts, and he asks the disciple to visit Yiping to convince him to create a new painting. With that, the young man feels embarrassed by his master's shady move and complains about having to trick a newbie for some cash. But he accepts the mission for the good of the sect, and his master praises him for it. We see the Qingyun Mountains, where there's a beautiful estate. There, a beautiful woman in a pink dress has just emerged from her secluded training and is admiring the view. With a satisfied look, she takes a deep breath and comments on how fresh and sweet the air is outside. Suddenly, another girl appears and calls out to her senior sister, surprising the white-haired woman. The newcomer is happy to see her colleague has finished her training and says she was just about to send a message. The older one then playfully grabs the other, calling her my cute little junior sister. She continues teasing her, and the younger girl turns beet red, asking her senior sister to knock it off. Ignoring her pleas, the white-haired woman pulls out a gourd flask and starts drinking while her colleague scolds her. But she doesn't seem to care about the lecture and celebrates, saying how refreshing the drink is. Then she offers a sip to the other, saying that wine is the ultimate remedy for happiness. The younger one yells that she's drunk again, but the senior sister just tries to hug her as she backs away. The white-haired woman asks Lingru if anything interesting has happened in the sect and makes fun of their senior brother. The girl replies that the master took in a new disciple and that it seems to have really bummed out the seniors. Hearing this, the older one gets super curious and asks her colleague to spill all the tea. She explains that the newbie couldn't learn a thing, which completely crushed the senior's spirits, leaving them all moping around. The senior sister finds the situation hilarious and starts laughing, but the younger one scolds her, saying it's a serious matter. So, the senior advises Lingru to focus on her teachings and ignore the other brothers, whom she considers useless. That she decides she's going to meet this new guy herself, and says goodbye, flying off while telling the other to keep training. Lingru is left behind, a little unsure, but she trusts her senior sister's judgment and believes everything will be fine. To Yiping's residence. Arriving there, the senior sister finds our protagonist meditating peacefully. Our hero is deep in concentration. Seeing this, the young woman blushes and thinks he's really cute, and that the master sure knows how to pick him. But suddenly, she notices something strange and feels that our guy's aura is a little different from the usual. His energy reminds her of her father's unique constitution, leaving her completely shocked by the possibility. She gets closer, trying to deny the idea, and wonders how a small sect could possibly have two peerless geniuses. Focusing intensely, the woman approaches our protagonist to get a better analysis of his energy. Her eyes light up as she confirms that the aura is the same one thought to be lost since ancient times. Suddenly, Yiping opens his eyes, but his attention is captured by something right in front of him. The sight before him leaves him completely mesmerized. He just stands there with a dopey look on his face, unable to look away, totally transfixed. Our hero scrambles backward, screaming in terror, and asks who she is and what she wants. The senior approaches and tells Yiping to be quiet so she can check his body. She turns bright red and thinks how incredible it is that the sect has two geniuses with supreme physiques. Our hero gets super flustered and asks who she is, all while he's still totally hypnotized by her assets. Then she introduces herself as the first senior sister, Xiao Muxiu, and our guy starts stuttering. Completely embarrassed, Yiping asks the woman to back up a bit, saying he's heard the master talk about her. But the senior finds his reaction adorable and gives him a playful hug. Our protagonist can't handle the pressure and gets a massive nosebleed, passing out right after. After he faints, the woman begins to analyze his energy by touching his forehead. She confirms his physique is the same as her father's, so now there's hope for their plan. The senior decides she will train him with everything she's got so that her special technique can reappear in the world. At that moment, our protagonist finally wakes up. The guy is completely confused, not understanding a thing, and asks the woman what just happened. The senior explains she was just examining him and that his energy rushed to his head from overtraining. Our hero is in shock when he hears his body was examined and starts to panic. She then reveals she found special traits and offers to teach him a Dao art that perfectly suits him. The senior teases him, asking if he can handle her rigorous training. With a determined look, our hero replies that he'll endure anything to learn. She then gives a mischievous little smirk and asks what he would do if it were any of that kind of training. Yiping turns bright red and gets confused, not understanding what kind of training she's referring to. The senior starts laughing and says she was just messing with him, calling him cute. Our protagonist promises he'll study hard and asks her not to think he's a slow learner. The senior finds it strange that he calls himself slow since his physique devours energy, which makes her suspicious of the master. She then asks Yiping if his body has been remodeled dozens of times, and he's shocked. The woman mentions she went through the same thing and that the pain was unbearable, so she calls him a madman. Our hero stands up, and the senior says she isn't worried about his determination, but reminds him to train hard. She explains that the world isn't as peaceful as it seems and that a great change is coming. In this new era, the human race isn't the strongest and could be crushed by demons and beasts. The senior promises that as long as she protects him, he will reach the top of the continent. She says that with great power comes great responsibility, and that he shouldn't let himself down. Our protagonist is impressed by the sect's ambition and feels even more determined to train. Full of excitement, our hero promises he will do his best and won't disappoint her. Just then, a strange light appears in the sky, catching their attention as they look up curiously. An energy butterfly lands on the senior's shoulder, delivering a message. She becomes furious and says the demon god palace has appeared and that this time, no one will leave alive. With that, the woman summons her spear and tells Yiping that she can't train him personally right now. Our protagonist is terrified as he feels her aura transform into something horrifyingly scary. Then she touches his forehead, leaving a mark with the details of the technique for him to train on his own. Our guy is shocked when he sees the name and wonders if it's a supreme QI refinement technique. His mind is flooded with information about the technique, which is said to be the strongest under the heavens. Basically, whoever masters this art can surpass all other cultivators, but the price to pay is something almost no one can bear. For starters, it's already nearly impossible to go from Chu refinement to the golden core, and this technique requires doing it 36 times. The result in a battle would be obvious, but the hard part is that the user must comprehend the technique on their own. The instructions are very vague and abstract, so progress depends entirely on one's own perception and luck. With great comprehension, not even immortality would be the final limit. But with poor comprehension, not even the basics of cultivation would be achievable, and with those words, our guy gets frustrated. that despite being the strongest art in existence, its two nearly impossible requirements have stopped everyone so far. Our guy is completely floored by the information he just received. He thinks that 36 times isn't so bad since he absorbs spiritual energy automatically, but the comprehension part worries him. Our hero despairs, remembering he has no talent, so he wonders what kind of comprehension he could possibly have. But he can't waste the senior's kindness and decides to start cultivating with everything he's got. Then he realizes the senior has already left and decides he needs to start training immediately. Just as he's about to start, our protagonist hears someone calling him little junior brother. Turning around, he sees the senior brother, who asks how he's been. Yepping is happy to see his senior and greets him, saying he's finally back. The senior brother asks why he isn't cultivating, and our guy replies that the senior sister was helping him. Hearing this, the senior is terrified and screams the woman's name, completely in shock. He has a flashback of her grilling him menacingly about his training. In a total panic, the senior grabs our protagonist and asks if she wasn't supposed to be in seclusion. Our hero explains that she's already left, so Su Chenyu wonders if it was all just an illusion. Suddenly, the senior gets furious and scolds Yipping for not finishing his sentence sooner. Seeing the over-the-top reaction, our guy wonders if his senior brother is scared of the senior. He tries to play it off, saying he saw a cockroach, but our protagonist finds the excuse even more embarrassing. From this, Yipping realizes that the senior sister must be the strongest disciple in the entire sect. The senior agrees and, all flustered, tries to change the subject by complimenting the beautiful scenery. He turns bright red, thinking about how awkward it is to ask a newbie for something directly. Then Su Chenyu remembers his mission and decides his life is way more important than his pride. With a weird look on his face, he asks if our hero has made any paintings or poems in his absence. Our protagonist confirms that he's made 2 paintings, leaving the senior brother completely surprised. Hearing the good news, the senior brother celebrates with a punch in the air and yells that his mission was a success. The senior brother, with a fake smile, asks our hero where the 2 paintings he mentioned are. Yipping explains that one is at his house and the other he gave to the second senior brother, and then offers one to him. Blushing, the senior refuses, saying he was just curious, and thinks with relief that his mission is already accomplished. With that, he pats our protagonist on the back, praising his effort, and notices that he looks stronger. Our guy gives a thumbs up and says it's all thanks to the high-level technique Su Chenyu gave him, leaving the senior confused. Yepping talks about the god Demon Bodhi refining art, and thinks how powerful the senior is to forget about such techniques. The senior brother totally panics, thinking his junior brother is a monster and that he can't ask any more questions. Seeing the weird reaction, our hero asks if the older one doesn't want to know about his training progress. But the senior is in shock, and his mind is screaming that he can't fight the urge to run away anymore. Defeated, he turns around and asks what Yipping thought of the technique he supposedly gave him. Our protagonist's eyes light up as he claims the technique is extremely strong and heaven-shaking. The senior just says, "That's good," and starts backing away. He then tells the younger one to train hard and not to waste the efforts of his dear senior brother. Our hero gets super pumped and, with clenched fists, thinks about how cool his senior brother is. Meanwhile, the senior is actually running for his life, terrified of our protagonist's absurd power. During his escape, the senior freaks out, thinking about how the newbie cultivated a cheap, knock-off manual that even he couldn't master the original of. He then stops running and decides it's better to focus on the sect's future since he and our hero aren't in the same league. Then he remembers his second brother and hopes the guy doesn't make the same mistake and get yelled at by the master. But then he smiles and thinks that Luchin is much more composed and will surely respect the original art. With that in mind, he heads to his colleague's house and knocks on the door, asking him to open up. The senior brother is confused because he can feel the other's presence but finds it weird that he isn't answering since the guy is so disciplined. No response, he approaches the door. The door opens, revealing Luchin with a face full of tears and desperation, leaving the senior completely lost. Suddenly, the second brother hugs him and dramatically screams his name. The colleague then says he doesn't need to say another word because he already understands everything, but Su Chenyu is speechless. Then Luchin grabs him tightly and says he's the only one who truly gets him, terrifying the senior. The senior brother shoves him away, and the other says he understands his pain, because the newbie isn't useless but a super genius. With a defeated look, the senior sighs and admits that his colleague also noticed our guy's absurd talent. The second brother clings to him again and cries, saying that Yipping's talent broke his Dao heart. The senior tells him to get a grip so he doesn't spread rumors, but the other says he got emotional because he found someone who understands him. Changing the subject, the senior brother asks if Luchin received a painting from the newbie. The second brother is shocked by the question and wants to know how the senior found out. All excited, he confirms it and says he was waiting to show off the incredible masterpiece. He unrolls the scroll and asks what his colleague thinks. He even brags about the inscription he added to it. Reading it, Su Chenyu's expression completely changes and he's in total shock. With a smug smile, Luochin shows the scroll to his senior brother. He gets all excited and asks his colleague to hurry up and praise him for his art. But upon seeing what was done, the senior's expression twists into pure horror. The second brother thinks the reaction is because his poem is so amazing and asks for a judgment. Su Chenyu continues to stare at the painting with a look like he's about to explode. The portrait itself is a perfect masterpiece made by our protagonist. But the poem was clearly copied, and Luchin wasn't the one who wrote it. To make matters worse, there are several corrections made right on top of the painting. The senior gets frustrated, thinking that the guy completely ruined the work. Even so, the second brother thinks he's receiving a huge compliment. Out of patience, Su Chenyu summons his sword while the other continues to brag. With eyes red with rage, he prepares to teach his colleague a lesson. Then, the senior attacks with full force, sending the second brother flying. Luchin lies on the ground, completely confused, not understanding the sudden attack. Terrified, he asks his senior brother what he's doing. Furious, the senior brother yells, asking what Luochin thinks he's doing. But the guy accuses the senior of being jealous of his writing talent. With that, Su Chenyu loses his patience and lands a kick on his colleague, calling him a brat. The second brother gets up angrily and says that his calm demeanor isn't a weakness. Ignoring the threat, the senior starts beating up the guy, who screams for his dad. While getting pummeled, Luchin begs for forgiveness and admits he was wrong just to stop the beating. He tries to run, but the senior continues the punishment while the guy screams for help. Then Su Chenyu kicks him hard and explains that painting on the portrait was somewhat acceptable. He continues, saying he could have tolerated the poem his colleague wrote over it. Even though it was annoying, he could have put up with the scribbles and the erased parts on the masterpiece. But what he can't forgive is the guy signing his own name on it, ruining everything. Su Chenyu yells that he threw a treasure in the trash with his useless scribbles. The second brother doesn't understand who the senior is doing all this for. The fight turns into a total mess, and Luchin gets beaten badly while screaming for help. All bruised up, the guy complains that one blow hit him with the force of an entire stanza. With tears in his eyes, Luchin swears that this isn't over and that he will get his revenge.